Welcome to the Horror Hour.
Sit down.
We all go a little mad. Get you.
You are going to die tonight.
Here's Johnny.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Horror Hour. It's the show where we discuss, debate, and disagree on all things horror. We are your hosts, Ben.
Hi, everyone.
George.
Hi, everyone.
Yutaka. And this week, I got these two to finally sit down and watch Hellraiser for the very first time. And for those of you at home, shut up, Ben. You can watch the first two on Shudder currently. Please sponsor us. And
That's spiritual.
And so with that, we will obviously get their first thoughts, which I think I can already hear. This is going to be lively, but I guess maybe give everyone just kind of a little breakdown. Just a family or husband and wife move into a new or their old home where his brother was basically squatting. He's kind of, dead, spoiler. And, they end up moving in. They drop blood on the floor. He starts to come back to life, enter in his daughter, Kirsty. There's a lovely little box that we all love to play with and puzzles and entryway to hell and demons and sadomasochism. I'm just dumbing it down because, that's what we do here.
I think you could dumb it down.
Yeah. Oh, so that's pretty much it. It's a movie based off Clive Barker's short stories called The Hellbound Heart. We'll go from there. So let's get your guys' thoughts.
George, want to go first, please?
Okay. So this film, I had no idea about what to know anything about this film going into it. I obviously knew about Pinhead. Like that's behind Yutaka if you watch the video on our YouTube channel. I didn't know anything about it and just this Pinhead dude. So I was like, okay, let's go. It was an hour and a half, which is great because I like a short horror film. I don't like ones that over-exacerbate, like Midsummer is like, here's a 3-hour film. I'm like, all right, calm down. But so I was very intrigued to really know what it was about. I as I say, no idea. So I sat down yesterday evening to watch this film, and I was it was definitely something that I can certainly say was interesting to watch. The film was, the only way I can kind of describe it is like the guy who wrote it had a really bad trip and didn't do a very good job of sort of recording and converting it into a watchable film. It's a lot. Do you know that I'm not going to slag it off completely? There were elements that I enjoyed. So, like Yutaka with Hell House, there were parts that I liked. This isn't me just getting back at Yutaka, by the way, guys.
I kind of feel like it is since you brought it up. You could have just continued.
Well, they're both called Hell. Just anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, I have no skin in the game, and you'll hear what I say soon.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just know that George is biased.
No, I'm trying to think of it as an overview. Okay, let me just kind of briefly go over what I wrote down. Mr. Cotton gets a puzzle box which opens another dimension. There are hanging body parts. Like, is this like there's a kebab wheel spinning around with like body parts on? It's like gave me like Saw vibes. Obviously, this is kind of maybe what Saw was inspired by in some elements. It's set in the UK. I thought that house was really nice. Actually, only 40-minute drive from where I live, the house that they filmed in. I might have to go. Because, I mean, the resale value on that they could get with that being in London would be great if they did it up. I was thinking that I would have liked to have seen what happened to the end of the house, but we didn't get to see that. Though it was in the UK, there was a surprising amount of Americans. Like the nurse was American and the friend was American. Like everyone was
I
American.
did not realize it was set in the UK.
It wasn't. It was
is-
filmed in the UK.
It's
However, they came back and redubbed it. No, they did. It was originally filmed. It's filmed in the UK,
yeah.
but they ended up changing the setting, and so they had to do voice recording over because originally they were British accents.
But then
Aside from just
why
go ahead.
in the film then does he say to her, "We're back on your soil"? To the
does he?
Yeah, to the wife.
Oh.
On
That's
your
in-
turf, he said.
Yeah, on your
Or
turf.
something like
Thank
that.
you. Yeah,
Hmm.
and then there are British people in it. There is a couple, but most of them are American. That just confused. Anyway, yeah, Larry Cotton's the dude. Frank, Julia Cotton, who I was like, where do I know this woman from? She's obviously the only actress I knew from the film. I knew her from Doctor Who. She's been in loads of stuff. She's a brilliant actress. She's probably my favorite thing about the movie. Then there's the daughter, Kirsty, who just looked like Winona Ryder. Like, I was like, this film, this is the issue. It was not an issue. It really just gave me, all I could think about was Beetlejuice. Like, I think it's the year, the time it was made, and like the special effects, and the move into this house, and the ginger mother. Like, it just gave me all I could think about was Beetlejuice all the way through, and the daughter looked like Winona Ryder. I was like, this is just Beetlejuice. Well, anyway, I'm glad I could say that I've watched it, because now I can talk about this film. Would I say it's one of my favorite horror films I've ever seen? No. So yeah, but I know I won't say that because we'll wait for the pros and cons. But for me, it wasn't the best horror film I've ever seen. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't rush back to it anytime soon. That's my overall thoughts.
Oh, are you going to give it a score?
Oh, sure, 5 out of 10.
Yeah, not biased at all. Okay, Ben, let's hear it. I'll trust your opinion, even if you hate it.
I wouldn't say I hate it. I wouldn't really say I liked it all that much either. I think this film just had zero effect on me, like either way. As I was watching it, I felt that the performance from that woman was actually really interesting. I liked her, even though there was no explanation as to why she felt so compassionate towards, was David his name? The guy, the brother? What was his name?
Uncle Frank.
Uncle Frank. Yeah. There was no explanation as to why she felt that way towards him. Such a love and such a compassion, but she still sold it. So I really did enjoy her performance. I have to say pretty much everything else. A lot of this movie. Now I have to say the movie I'm going to compare it to, I actually genuinely hated, even though it's probably a better movie than Hellraiser. But it reminded me a lot of Manhunter. You know that movie, the first Silence of the Lambs movie?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really, really just not a good movie, not an enjoyable movie whatsoever. And it reminds me of that because, like, you have this character in Pinhead, and in that film you had Hannibal Lecter, and I think this is a good thing that horror franchises do, but these two films really fucked it up, which is there's particularly Manhunter, but I felt the boringness and the just nothingness of Manhunter in Hellraiser, even though I felt that Hellraiser did the whole plot of have the Pinhead be sort of in the background as like a looming presence, but don't really have the whole film be about him, which obviously as the franchise goes on, it more and more becomes more about him. Is that true, Yutaka? Is it more like just about the Pinhead than just the actual story?
Kind of. It still really explores the whole topic of, different dimensions in hell, sadomasochism. And so while he's somewhat of a focal point, there are he's not really the lead per se. I think he's more sold as, eventually you're going to see him and the other Cenobites, but it's really, he's still kind of more of a supporting character. His presence is just more well known.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I have to say I have no idea how this film could have spawned a franchise, because I just find it also uninspiring. Like, sure, I'd like to see more of like the Cenobites and Pinhead, but at the same time, like, I didn't need to. Like, I was perfectly fine with what I got here. Like, this is the type, if this movie came out today as it is, it would be like, I don't think I want a sequel. I'd want like a streaming show about Pinhead or something like that. That would be like the way. It wouldn't have spawned this gigantic in terms of like longevity, but this really sort of big franchise. I don't think that would have happened if the film came out as it is today. The effects, to be fair to them, are pretty good. In some points, they reminded me of The Fly, like the makeup and stuff like that. the production design, but the visual effects, obviously because it's really old, but the visual effects are pretty terrible. Like those little electric things that they try and do and the from the box.
Their practical effects were so much better than the visual effects. Yeah, agreed.
100%. Yeah. But other than that, I genuinely have nothing else to really say. I found it all just really, like, I was finishing it because I had to do it for the podcast, and I didn't want to like not do it and just lie about it. So I watched the whole thing, and I have really nothing to say about it. It's just the type of movie that just had no effect on me. You know, you watch a movie and it's just like, okay, I'm never gonna think about that again. Like it was like exactly like that, like the new Charlie's Angels movie. You know, you watched it, wasn't too bad, wasn't too good, but you watched it, you finished it, and you were like, okay, time to move on to bigger and better things, hopefully. And hopefully, I'll be moving on to more episodes of The Walking Dead after this, and that will definitely be better things than Hellraiser.
Series.
All right. Well, what would be your score out of that then?
Because her performance was so good and so captivating, and I did feel some emotion towards her, I would have to give it, like George, I'd say a 5, because I think that I can see someone really loving and digging this movie. But I definitely didn't. But I can't necessarily fault it for being what it is. What it is just boring to me. But for some people, it could be like, you know, finally a movie for them, which is cool. Like, I have movies like that where some people probably just detest them, but I'm all for it. That happens. But Hellraiser for me is just meh. Just meh. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Movies can just be meh, and we don't have to have explosions about it.
No, you all are entitled to your opinion. That's quite all right. We all have different connections with movies, or you know, I think when we see movies nowadays from way back when, maybe some don't believe it holds up, but I completely disagree. I do think this does. And just a couple of things that, yes, it was filmed in the UK, but New World convinced Barker to relocate the story to the United States. So I guess they also didn't catch that script part, but
no, because also the house was extremely like.
The house was extremely UK because they filmed in the UK as well. But
because I was really confused for a time, like exactly what I was like. I was like, this house looks very British, and then I was like, oh, these guys are American, and she was British, and then there was that whole thing about, you know, we're back on your ground turf, whatever it was that you said, and then there was like one or two British people like that under the passing through. There was scenes I was like, that's filmed in the UK. But then, like, like you say, like then half the cast was American. Yeah, and I was like, it confused me.
It was so one of the things too is it for even still for 19, when did it come out?
87.
It was still low budget. I mean, it only had a budget of $1 million. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, so really in terms of practical effects or that I thought were astounding. Couple little things. There's quite a bit that was actually cut from the film because originally it was given an X rating, and that's mainly for gore, and they kind of went into more sexual tones because, again, I think that's part of the whole well, I guess you would say allure to Pinhead is just because there can be pain and pleasure, and it's where that meets. And so
I mean, for me, I felt like they were doing those things to be controversial. I didn't feel like they added to the story. Like I mean, apart from the fact that obviously Frank was a proper pedo and was asking everyone to call me daddy or come to daddy, and I was like, what is this? This is like,
I don't know if
I don't think
that route,
but I don't think.
But that's what you felt.
He literally says to his niece, "Come to daddy," several times and grabs her. You can't tell me that's
maybe it does take place in Alabama.
I thought Kirsty was like college age, so
but that's still incest.
But, like, still weird.
Yes, that's not pedo, so that's what I'm saying. No, it's still just as bad. Right. Don't give it. But you're sitting here because that gives it a whole entirely different tone. that I don't think that movie was going for. That's what I was saying.
I just don't. I just thought that
It was creepy.
Well, it wasn't creepy. It was just. I don't think it executed anything that well. So I didn't feel like, oh, I get this. Like I kind of assumed that this guy, because we saw one scene with him cutting Julia thing, and you go, oh, like he's obviously into like some sort of dark role play or whatever. But like we never got to explore that. It was never really stated. And maybe this is a case of like I said, I don't want to put it on you, but like last time I said to Ben, oh, watch the sequels to Hell House and you'll see, like, is more explained about what these films are about, or is it just kind of a shock and awe? Because it just reminded me of Saw, like they were just doing it for the sake of shock and awe for me.
Well, sad to say I haven't read the short story, so I can't go deeply into that. I don't know if, again, it was necessarily for like shock and awe. And I would say as the sequels, at least, because yes, it has spawned a ton of sequels. And really, I've seen them, but they really only stopped exploring the whole mythos, and they only really became worse. It was after 4, but they did actually still explain the whole, like the second one, you kind of get more of an exploration into like that other dimension. And then in the third one, there's still more, who kind of is Pinhead, who was he in real life, and how did he become who he was. And then the fourth one was more just about how to destroy the actual box itself, to destroy the, Cenobites forever. So there was a proper story. I think the first one was really about introducing the characters, because the original, with the sequels, there were certain people they wanted to come back, but they declined. And so they're like, well, we're just going to rewrite some things. Because one, a lot of people took to both Kirsty and Julia. So that's why in the sequel, Julia is your main antagonist. And there's actually a pretty awesome, good violent scene when she comes into play. But I love it. I still think it's really, it's a fun, it's just a wild mental trip, like you said. Yes, I'm sure when Clive Barker was thinking all this up and everything, he was just, he was on something. But the other thing too is this was the first film he's directed, so it wasn't well made. Yeah, and he even says it. He's very honest about it. So again, I think the big selling point for a lot of people, it's still kind of just that taboo when it comes to sadomasochism, or just, I wouldn't say BDSM, since they don't really do bondage, but just, and also kind of really how when Pinhead speaks, any of the Cenobites, when they speak, it's really kind of got that, eroticism to it. And I think people kind of liked that. And then I wish they would have, at least in the first film, delved more into the other realms of hell and all of that. And I think that would have been a little bit better. Do I think this film's a 10 out of 10? Absolutely not. No, it's just one that I consider a favorite. It's one that's, one of my favorite classics. I think I'm happy it spawned a franchise. I'm just sad to see where the franchise went. And I think, Doug Bradley, he loves the character, and I think he plays a great Pinhead, as the series went on. And, I'm looking forward to the future, since, there's now going to be a remake movie Hulu's doing, and then HBO Max is doing a series.
Who did the rights belong to?
Well, I don't know. I would assume it's still Clive Barker, and he can do whatever he wants with it. So if somebody wants to create a movie.
I was just going to ask then, since we're going to be talking about Candyman later on in this podcast, I was going to ask you what you thought the future of this franchise could potentially be. But now we have the answer. More of a clusterfuck.
Not necessarily. I think the movie is going to, from what I can understand, the movie is going to be separate. And the actual series, which I think, like you said, I think it will work better as a streaming series because they can delve deeper in to the mythos. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Hellraiser. And again, you don't see that in the first film. It's more in the series. So I would like to see, like, kind of like what we're getting for Chucky. I think that's so awesome. We're going to get 8 hours of television to really explore Chucky. So I would hope we could kind of get something. Yes, but I couldn't tell. They didn't say which one's going to continue and which one's going to be its own. Either way, I still hope they discuss the whole other realms and dimensions of hell. And yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, it is the era of horror TV shows at the moment, like whether it's on Netflix or pretty much nowhere else.
No,
like,
Shudder.
Where else is horror TV? Oh, Shudder, of course, sponsor us, please.
Yeah,
and
but seriously, no, they do. They have. We can talk about television shows later, but they have they gave Slasher a 4th season, and that just premiered, and it's actually really good. Gory is.
Shudder really wanted to give something else a 4th season. Glow would be a great candidate. 100%.
Or if they want
turn it
to
into a horror show.
Oh my goodness.
Put some money behind the 2nd series of the Horror Hour. They can do that.
Yes, sponsor us. But I guess yes, I would say, since I asked for everyone, if I were to give this a rating, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, it's not like a perfect film by any means. I think I just have more of a connection. I loved the taboo. I loved I love Pinhead. I loved that character. And honestly, and I'm still basing it kind of on the series. There are just things that he does that I really, really enjoy. And he's just twisted. And what I love is he doesn't think that he's bad. He doesn't think that he's good. I mean, you said that perfect quote, demons to some, angels to others.
I did like that quote.
I mean, it's a fantastic quote. It's one of my favorite lines. So that's what I would give it. But before we go into our pros and cons, we'll just take a short break and we'll be right back.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Horror Hour TV.
And we're back. All right. So now, since we kind of gave our breakdown, our thoughts, overall thoughts and scores, let's hear George and Ben's pros and cons. Who would like to disappoint me first?
Well, Ben, because I went first on the overall.
Cool. Well, I suppose to say if I have like any pro for this movie, again, I'm just completely indifferent on it. So I guess the biggest thing I have to say that I took from the movie was the incredible performance by George. What's her name?
Claire Higgins.
Claire Higgins.
Julia or Kirsty?
No,
Julia.
Claire Higgins. Yeah.
Just make a check. Claire Higgins then.
Christy was good, but again, I thought that Claire Higgins' performance was really, really, really good, and definitely was what made me keep watching, like, more than anything else in the movie. Because I don't really think, like, the guy was just such a dick. Like, I can't imagine, like, the writing was pretty poor, but she truly did sell it, like, more than I think anyone else in the movie did, because, like, the guy who was all bloody was just a dick. Like, I don't understand why she would just, like, say, okay, fuck off and die up here in the attic. Like, I would
again,
just
she loved him, so.
But they never really explained why she loved him so much. Like, they had sex once. Like, it never really explains how, like, was she bored with her husband, and then, like, he comes along, like, I suppose another draft of the script, like, if it wasn't Clive Barker's first film, it probably would have delved more into her psychology and more into that relationship that was apparently broken, but, like, they seemed okay, like, in the movie. Like, they didn't seem like they hated each other or anything, but like, they kind of did, but not really. I suppose things needed to come across more clear for everything else to make sense later on, which I don't think. Look, I'll get into cons later. But yeah, that's pretty much my only pro, and I have to say that the practical effects were really cool. Pinhead and all of the other, what are they called?
Cenobites.
Cenobites. They all looked really cool. I love the designs on some of them. They look like like a weird punk rock band in a weird way. Like, you know, the chubby guy with the glasses. I thought he just looks like some like drummer or something like that. Like, he looks so cool. And the guy with open throat was really deadly.
Oh, it's a woman.
That was a woman.
I can't tell. They're fucking demons, like.
And angels to some.
Oh, and angels
Others,
to some.
others,
Yeah.
sorry.
Others. Other than that, I'd have to say that's probably my only pro. Except for that, I do think that Clive Barker's stories, both this and Candyman, kind of have like a similar feel to them. Like, they do have a similar sort of vibe. I think Candyman executes everything far better and does a way better job. That's one of the greatest horror films I've ever seen. But I do think that they have a similar vibe as to how like the stories play out and how their protagonists, or not the protagonists, but the title characters. Pinhead's not the title character, but like, he kind of is he? Hellraiser? No? Like,
I mean, he's eventually your ultimate antagonist overall.
Right.
I would venture to say Julia became really the villain in the first film, because I agree, she just was phenomenal, and I would think she was kind of the true. I think what we saw was a character transformation on her. You could tell, honestly, I think their relationship was there. Like, I feel like Larry was the safe bet, but Frank is what she really wanted. So that's why she just
Frank was just such a cunt.
well,
He was
yes.
just such a dickhead.
But she was just bored. But then you just see over time, like, it was like when she did that first kill, love it.
Like, I would have preferred a film in which she just can't get over the fact that this Frank has disappeared or gone and died, and creates a false narrative in her head that she needs to kill these people in order to bring him back. And it just turns out that she's an absolute psychotic bitch. That would have been great. I didn't
like in Candyman. Like,
exactly.
they kind of pulled the rug out from you, like in the middle of Candyman, where they make you think that Virginia Madsen's character might be going insane. And they genuinely do this really cool thing where, unlike in Chucky, where like, you know, it's not a mystery, you know that Chucky is actually alive because you saw the voodoo at the beginning. In Candyman, it's like, okay, maybe this shit is actually just an urban legend. Maybe it genuinely is. There are clues here and there to say maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then as the movie goes on, you know that. And I think that would have been a far better approach to this story than what we eventually, unfortunately, got. But those are all my pros. And George, we're going to move on to you now. So what do you think?
I really enjoyed the sound, the score. I thought the score at place was really good. Like, even though the story was not really going anywhere for me, the music kind of kept me involved, and I was like, "Ooh," you know, like, it did actually. I got a couple of like parts in it, and yeah, I really liked Christine. I thought, was his name? Did we say her name was Christine? Did I make that up? Was her name
Kirsty?
No, who's Julia? Who plays Julia again?
Oh God, Claire
Doctor
Higgins.
Who. Claire Higgins.
Claire
Sorry,
Higgins.
she was the High Priestess in Doctor Who, the Sisters of Khan. Anyway, yeah. Well, I like Ben said, she was a standout for me. Everyone else was just kind of boring. Like, it was, yeah. I didn't particularly. I mean, like, I guess Kirsty maybe is in the other films and is kind of like the Nancy of the.
Yeah, I guess she's in. Yeah, she's in 3.5, and
yeah. So I can see that they were setting that up for her to be like a final girl. But it was kind of like a last minute thing, because obviously at the beginning it's really, you know, you're struggling with like, oh, Julia, and if, you know, what she's doing right or whatever, while this guy's just wandering around in a suit upstairs in the attic. Like I say, I do also agree that I think the special effects, like the VFX, whatever you call them, not VFX, are the practical effects, sorry, yeah, were really, like, when he turned around, he's like, it's Frank. I was like, he looked like they looked good.
I think for back then, those were really good. Yeah, they did a great job.
So yeah, for me, I would say the practical effects were really cool. I enjoyed the score, and I really enjoyed Claire Higgins' performance. They would be my pros.
Because I'm thinking when I was a kid, and the one scene did make me jump. Was there any scene that kind of made you maybe even jolt a little?
Yes, there was. And I
want to know if it's the same. Go ahead.
When Jesus falls out of the closet. And I said, Jesus. And it was actually Jesus. And then, fun fact, I watch these YouTubers called Cinema Rules, and they did a reaction to it. So I watched it, was a while back. So I watched the reaction just before, and they literally said the same thing. Like, he fell out and he's like, Jesus. He's like, literally. So that was the part that made me jump, but only because I was probably half asleep. So it jolted me awake. Why? What scene was it for you that made you
That
jump?
was exactly the same thing.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. I thought it was
It made
done
me laugh.
very well. It was I mean, it was expected, but there wasn't, how I don't feel like they led up to it with the sound. And I like that because I hate when, they do the whole, it's the sound that's going to get you, but that was kind of nice. I like that. And then the maggots all fall out and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
So yeah, that's my pros. Thanks for your time.
Yutaka, are you going to do pros?
I mean, I feel like I said most of my pros, but again, I really liked both Ashley Lawrence and Claire Higgins' performances. I really did like Kirsty, especially at the end. I, again, big fan of Doug Bradley and Mr. Pinhead over here. I think I love the vocals on him that they'd go with throughout the entire series. Actually, it's just there's just something about it. I love the practical effects. I think they're great. I do think they shouldn't have done those VFX though. That was just silly. That kind of took away from some things. Obviously, it being Clive Barker's first film, like I'm happy because he wrote it, he directed it, but he clearly needed some help with that. I loved just the topic, and I love that it was introducing us to a new, like I said, horror icon in a sense. While yes, the series may have faded, I think Pinhead is still very, very iconic and long lasting. But huge fan. I really loved the kills. I thought they were brutal. And yeah.
So Doug Bradley's also from Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And the guy who played Frank is British.
Mm-hmm.
He was an interesting character. He actually really was. I did think his voice was a very OTT though. Like even when he was a human, he was just, it didn't seem like his voice. So was that dubbed over? Yeah.
I don't know. That I thought that was very interesting learning about that they decided it would be better if, hey, we're going to relocate this. And that's why I guess I never caught on that it was, originally UK. The only thing that I remember is just when I would see the house, I was like, that's not a house you would see in the US, and especially like in the bathroom and how the kitchen, the toilet. I was like, yeah, that's kind of UK, but I mean, I never caught on to it until now.
One of the best things about Candyman is the sense of the atmosphere, the setting of Chicago. It is Chicago, isn't it? In Candyman? Yeah. That setting really does a lot for that movie and adds to the story and adds to the sort of effect of the movie. I think that what Hellraiser is lacking, I think if this film was more like Candyman and how it approached its story rather than just sort of being straightforward, I suppose I think it was a few years too early, and then I think the franchise kind of didn't really evolve with the times and probably stayed on the same track that the first film sort of set up, and then went like even more downwards.
Okay.
Fair?
I disagree with that, but I think after a certain point, yes. But again, I think they did a good job with the first few to where they expanded on the story to where I just, you got to know more about it. So, I know you keep comparing to Candyman because we'll talk about that in a moment, but I don't know if really the setting itself was really what was the big selling point of this movie. I don't even think that's, the biggest care. And as my dogs are barking, I do apologize. But
they know for saying no, it is an important integral part of the story. Well, for me, it just confused me because I was like, I don't understand where this is. So for half the film, I was like, is this America? Or is this Britain? Which
But
shouldn't
really,
shouldn't
most
be.
of the most of the story though took place in the house. That's the whole thing. It really wasn't, where they're at. It was more just about the story and the house because that's where everything was centered around.
Yeah, but that stuff wasn't very good. Like it
I
wasn't
get
very
that.
interesting.
That's your opinion.
I think that's bizarre that New World convinced Barker to relocate the story to the United States, which required.
Did I not just tell you?
You
that?
you did. But I'm just like, I just find that bizarre. It's like
Mm.
when they did it with the girl on the train. Anyway,
I think they did
Wait,
that
did
in
they?
terms of
did they what?
With the girl on the train.
Well, the girl on the train is set in London. The book's in London, and the film is obviously not in London. But they've got all these American. They've got all these Brit. No, but they decided to put it in America because they were like, we need to, it needs to be somewhere they understand. So,
but they didn't do it after filming though. So that's
no. But I'm just talking about I hate when people.
I think partly in this, you have to think about when you see things like that. It's about how it's going to sell more. So
how much money did this make?
It made budget more than that. It again, budget was around 1 million, and it made over 14. So it was technically a hit.
Probably more than the Suicide Squad will ever make.
Critically, it's
got 70 like something on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's good,
but yeah.
So here's the thing though, because it's interesting. What I mostly see from people is you're either one way or you're the other, which I take you guys are you just weren't a fan of it, and that's okay. You didn't connect with it. It just wasn't your thing. I totally get that. Me on the other hand, it's one of my favorites. I think it's great. But hey, it is what it is. So I guess then we talked about our pros. You kind of elaborated on your cons, but I feel like you had more because you really didn't.
I never said mine.
Oh, sorry.
That was all Ben talking for about. I've been sat here for half an hour.
Oh gosh.
For God's sake. Okay, first of all, what was that weird dragon thing at the end? What was that? That was bizarre. That was just like there's this guy. It was supposed to be like the devil, and then obviously I
thought it was Satan.
Yeah, because it looked like some sort of like satanic thing, but I was really it was just I don't know. I just thought it was like I would have preferred.
Sponsor us.
Oh my God, what was it? Oh no, what was his name? What was the old guy called? Bless me, said now. Oh look, that was him. Levine. What was his name? Levine. Not.
Who are you talking about?
The original guy who headed up the Church of Satan.
What? I don't know.
But you were talking about Church of Satan. Please sponsor us.
Yeah, sponsor us. Like we want big names on our podcast, but like I don't know anything about them.
Oh, for God's sake!
Actually, no, I know everything about them. We know a lot about the Church of Satan, which is why they should sponsor us.
I have no idea what the Church of Satan is about. Where'd that come from?
The Church of Satan. He was talking about. I was talking about. Was that Satan? Anton LaVey. That's it. Anton LaVey. Sorry, he's dead.
No, they don't say it's anything. They just say it's a winged skeleton creature flying away.
Exactly. It's just ran. I would have preferred if she would have chucked the box in the fire and then we then there was a scene of it be like back, or you're like, oh, there's another one. It's not the only box. Like that would have been rather than like this thing just like flying off with it. I just thought it was a bit bizarre.
There could have been like one box for every like Cinnabite.
There's actually more boxes.
Yeah, like every
that's
level.
More. Yeah, that's later on in the series. There's more than just the one box.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was one. What else did I put? I'm just. Do you know what? I didn't write that many. To be fair, what are you laughing at?
Keep going.
Which is so funny.
How rude. I put don't watch this high. I think that's a fair criticism.
I don't know.
Or maybe you'll enjoy it more.
Maybe you will. I mean, evidently the person that Clive Barker was on something when he wrote it. Yeah. I put not come to daddy as a line. I put this movie is really stupid. I put Frank is a controlling dickhead.
Yeah.
Why is everyone American? It's set in the UK. Steve was Steve supposed to be Irish? He was like that guy where like had like he was American, but then
Steve
was exactly. Steve was the
He was the
boyfriend.
boyfriend.
He was like in it for 5 minutes and I got chasing
Yeah.
Kirsty
What?
around
I
going.
thought he was American, clearly.
But I thought at first he was trying to do like he was an American doing an Irish accent, but then obviously maybe just been dubbed over. Anyway, I put practical effects. Yeah, they were good, but the VFX reminded me of Beetlejuice. Like when that big thing was crawling down the hallway, like it reminded me of what they look like. But maybe obviously that's just time, and that's what the VFX
Sure.
like in those days. So
Yeah.
I thought it's very 80s with the gore. Like, they were like, let's have, loads. So I assume, when it came out, people would have been like, but for me, I was just like, it feels like they're just doing this to be like bloody rather than for it to be part of the story.
It looked like Tom Savini style makeup, which is really cool.
Yeah, like that moment, the first bit when the claw, like the things went into his nipples, it just made me laugh. And he got like dragged into the box. Also,
Did they reuse that shot like many times? I feel like I saw that shot like so many
and then
times.
they kind of like reused it when he got at the end when his face got like pulled apart and he was chatting some shit. I can't remember what he was saying. I did kind of like how it came full circle, is what I wrote at the end.
Did it come full circle?
Well, that the box was put back and it was like, but my question was, why did Frank want that box if he didn't want to be in that world? Like now you're picky because it's a bit too much sadomasochism for you. Yeah. Like, you can't pick and choose.
Unanswered questions. It feels like there's like, this is like the first cut of the movie and they want to go back and reshoot some stuff. That's what it kind of feels like.
It feels like Justice League.
No, it feels like the New Mutants.
It does. It feels like New Mutants. I agree. It feels like there was several films before this, which maybe there was because maybe in those times, like you said, Yutaka, there was different versions of the film because there was like the X-ray thing. So maybe those would have added more.
Was that
just one thing I would say that the reason Frank didn't want that box to go anywhere was more so he could control in terms of that opening that opens the portal.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to get away from the Cenobites. So for him, he doesn't want anybody to touch that box because he doesn't want them to open it. Because if they open it, they'll come.
Yeah, but why did he open it in the first place?
He didn't know in the original. I mean, he was just he
must have been told what the box was for. I thought he said because he doesn't say something about being into, I thought there was a whole thing about this was supposed to be the next level of sadomasochism, wasn't it? I don't know. That's why I was a bit fun fact though, the original name of the film, which I'm glad they didn't go with, was Sadomasochists from Beyond the Grave. That would have been a mouthful.
That would have been stupid.
Hello and welcome to Sadomasochists from the Grave 3, Return to the Grave review.
Yeah. No, I think he was interested in the whole pleasure, pain, whatever it could bring, but I don't know if he knew it would again.
Shit, this is a bit extreme for me.
Yeah, too much pain.
Oh God, chains are gonna come and rip me apart, and they're gonna just put pieces of my face on a spinning wooden block. I don't know. I don't think he knew that. So
I think there is a lot of this film that's shock value, but now people openly 50 Shades of Grey is $1 billion franchise, and people just don't care anymore about that type of stuff.
But,
so that's shock value.
I think that's more BDSM, isn't it, than sadomasochism?
Yeah, that's more BDSM.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I should hope not. Watch Twilight instead. It's a much better version.
Although The Weeknd did a very
stay away from Twilight. That is trash. Anyways.
It's better than this film.
Yeah.
It's a better love story in this film than
this wasn't a love story.
Love story. It wasn't a love story. She did everything because she wanted that guy's dick. What do you mean? It's not a love story. She literally murdered 6 men so she could have that penis. That's a love story. Anyway, sorry.
It was very Joker and Harley. It felt very much like that sort of dynamic.
She could be a great Harley Quinn. Maybe we can get her to be. Oh no, she's about 80 now, isn't she?
Yeah, but honestly, at this point, anyone would probably sell more tickets than Margot Robbie as the character. So, anyone, come on, bring it on.
So, anyways, back to horror.
That is horror. Some of her performance. Anyway, go on. Yeah. So clearly, cons. Yeah, I would say it just for me the story wasn't there. I felt like, which I've said before, there was a lot of it felt like it was for the purpose of shock and awe, which is fine. That's not a problem. That's just not the type of film. I didn't really like the Saw films, and even they have a bit more of a story underlined. But then again, I've seen them all. So maybe if I don't know if I could watch 9 of these films though, because I watched the trailers for all of them. It was like a 13-minute video on YouTube.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, like I said, they weren't good after a certain point. I truly
Well, I
only
would
think
dread
you
to
should
think then.
watch. Yeah, you should only watch up to 4. I guess you could watch 5 because Henry Cavill's in it.
Mm.
Okay.
I ugh.
Was Doug Bradley in all of them as the Pinhead? Or was
He was only, I think, in 7 of them. They
Okay.
didn't really ask him
Only
to
in
come back.
7.
Well, I mean,
Is there more of
it's
these than Friday the 13th?
the thing is, Doug Bradley though he is Pinhead. So for them to have cast somebody else or not to have had him, that's kind of it's a crappy thing. It's like when they made the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street and look what we got.
Yeah.
It was not good.
To be fair,
Not the same
Jackie Earl
person.
Haley could have been an incredible Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Sure.
a shame he was in the movie he was in because
Yeah.
he, more than anyone, I would say that probably you could find someone like nowadays who could really do it, but I think he would have been phenomenal. I don't think
Yeah,
that film is as
sure.
bad. We'll debate that movie another time, and I'm
Yeah.
looking
That
forward
film's
to
terrible.
it very much.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake the way I feel about this one. Like, I'm kind of indifferent on it. Like, I thought there were some interesting things in both of them. They both tried, I think, but both ultimately failed to be anything interesting and memorable.
I disagree, but fair enough. Sorry I had to make you guys sit through and watch it.
It was. Do you know what though? If I'm being honest, I would rather watch this than Fear Street 1978.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
or Fear Street 1960.
Petty. I tell you. And yet that's still the one that's most watched and listened to.
Only on the podcast on YouTube. It's
on
Hell
the
House.
podcast.
On the podcast, yeah, but not on YouTube. On our YouTube channel, it is
Well,
nowhere near the biggest.
Well,
yeah, Fear Street was such a flop for us, and then everything
Yeah.
else we've done has actually done pretty decent. But Fear Street was just such a disaster in terms of views.
Oh, well,
Like
that's
66
because
views.
of, well, whichever. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will discuss what we are hoping for from the next, from Nia DaCosta's Candyman.
You are listening to the Horror Hour with Ben, George, and Yutaka.
All right. All right. And we're back. All right. So, in the tradition of, we're already discussing Clive Barker and he did some short stories. That's what really Candyman is based off of. Let's talk about what we're hoping to get out of the next Candyman film. Who would like to go first? Oh,
I will go first. Yeah? Yeah,
Sure.
no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just like...
Sorry. Well, I have to say the number one thing I'm most excited for is to see the return of this lore, this film from the 1990s, which when I saw it for the first time a few months ago, leapt up to be one of my favorite horror films of all time. It is truly an underrated masterpiece. And I would genuinely go that far as to say that I think it's so before its time and so overlooked, but definitely I would say just one of the most iconic films for me. And it's so iconic because its story is so tight and it interweaves that with a really good social commentary that also has some very good scares in it. Like, it is a very scary, gory movie it knows exactly what it's doing. It has a vision and it never goes away from that vision. So I'm very excited to see the return of this film and to see this truly become a franchise, because there were no sequels after the original Candyman. It just was one movie and that's it. And Nia DaCosta is bringing it back along with Jordan Peele, and I am ecstatic to see what they can bring to this franchise. I think it is ripe to return right now. I think it is perfect. The perfect type of horror film. And it's not projected to do that well at the box office, but I think people could be underestimating it. I think this film, more than any of the other horror films this year, has the potential to be a breakout success. Like, I think we all knew that The Conjuring 3 would make money. We all knew that all of the other horror sequels would probably underdeliver. Like, Don't Breathe 2 didn't make that much money. Escape Room 2 barely made any money. The Forever Purge, whatever, yada, 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 so on, so on, so on. But I think that Candyman, because of the success that Blumhouse has had, with just launching. Sometimes they launch films, huge hits. Sometimes they launch them and they don't. I think this film has the potential to be a breakout success at the end of summer. It's a shame it has the release date it has, but I think it could. I think it could break out and make a decent bit of money. I'm not expecting it to break records, but I think somewhere in the 20s, if it makes like in the 30s, that would truly be astounding. But I don't think that's going to happen given how the pandemic has affected how horror films make money. But I think if it made anywhere near The Conjuring 3, that would be incredible. But yeah, that's what the number one thing I'm most looking forward to.
So
Is to have it back.
I will say, Ben, there were sequels, but by the way, they weren't like great, but there were sequels.
No, I'm aware that was sarcasm. As in we just thought
I couldn't tell. I just thought it was your accent.
He likes to pretend they didn't exist.
Yeah, that's what I do with
It also it
most
wasn't
Halloween.
an underrated hit though. I mean, it was commercially it was successful, and
No, it only made like 30 million-ish, was it?
but the budget again was you're looking at like 8 something million, and again this was back in the early 90s.
The budget was 8 to 9 million. The box
Yeah.
office was 25.8 million.
So it still made budget.
United
It's
States.
still, I mean, it was, I think it was well received for the most part. But when you say it's underrated, trust me, people know Candyman. And I think just like you said, once it was announced that Jordan Peele was going to be bringing this, and then you got Nia DaCosta who's directing it, and then you got this cast. Holy shit, this cast is amazing. You've got freaking Yahya Abdul-Mateen, then you've got Coleman Domingo, and then
Teyana Paris.
Yes, thank you, Teyana Paris. What I also love is I need to find it, but the fact that they brought the one lady back from the original. I was, oh my gosh.
They did?
What, Vanessa?
Yes. Why can't I remember? Yes, Vanessa
I just
Williams.
said that, and you said no.
Did you?
I just said,
No.
yeah, Anne-Marie McCoy is the name of the character.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I thought you said Virginia Madison. That's why I was like, no.
No.
Sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
You know
Hell-
what's
you know-
really interesting?
What?
But
Ashley
I-
Lemons
Yeah.
starred in the original Candyman and Silence of the Lambs, and then she went on to direct Cynthia Erivo and Harriet, who got an Oscar nomination. So
Yeah.
it just goes to show that Hollywood is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. This is an incredible cast. It looks fantastic. I hope that we get again a continuation. I love that it's still set in the same universe. I really actually enjoy that the most. So who knows what surprises could, be in store. I'm actually looking forward to, because I think, Ben, as you pointed out, I think one of my favorite things was the social commentary from the first one. I mean, it was very, for a horror film, it was very it was deep. It really, I just loved everything about it. It wasn't just some yes, I love Hellraiser, but did it have the same depth as Candyman? No, it certainly does not. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to see Nia DaCosta. I have a feeling she's going to do great with this film, and I'm so excited to see that she's got more on the horizon. But I'm excited. I hope it does well. I think again, just because of the pandemic, that screwed a lot of films over. So I hope it's a success, considering because it deserves to be. I think the cast, I think the story, and if it's pulled off well, I certainly would love to see a sequel if that's the route they want to go. And also I really want to see violent kills, because the first one,
I think we're gonna get
was
them.
brutal. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Like-
that's what I would like to see.
When the kid looks into the bathroom door in the trailer and there's just fucking blood all over the place, that is what we are looking for in this film, and we're very, very excited. George.
Can I say one more thing?
No. Yes.
Did you guys not laugh when it was in the trailer? Hold on. This made me laugh and I loved it. When, of course, it's the 4 white girls, and I think there was one Asian doing the whole
Yeah.
Candyman bit. I'm like, of course they would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't.
I really hope
think-
that there was one black girl in the bathroom, and I think that if they wanted to do something like that, if she ends up being blamed for the murders,
Ooh,
I think that's something that they want to go there
I
with.
didn't think of that. Ooh, that could be
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he
Well,
wouldn't
maybe she's
attack her.
killed.
He did. No, I doubt she
No,
would be.
I don't think
He
she
didn't.
is. She was hiding because in the trailer she's like hiding all the bloods all dripping down. I think something like that, yeah, will
Like
be.
Candyman, I think only kills who summons him, right? Oh, this will be so fascinating. I can't wait. Okay,
He
sorry,
killed
George.
Bernie in the original. He killed Cassie Lemons' character, and all she did was walk into the fucking apartment.
That's actually very true.
He really wanted
Hmm.
that apartment.
Yeah. It was a great apartment.
It was lovely. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Tony Todd back. I love him. I don't think he gets enough work between this and Final Destination franchise. I mean, he should have been in all of those films. Like he was the best part of a lot of those films. Those later ones got a little bit. And when he came back in the most recent Final Destination 5, I was like, yes, this is what I need. And so I'm so glad that he's back. I kind of wish that they could have got Virginia back. I would have thought that, with Nina DaCosta and Jordan Peele, they could have pulled her back, but instead we've got Cassie Kramer, who's going to be playing Helen in this film.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, that's terrible.
Mhm.
Oh.
That's a shame.
But maybe it could be a case of maybe it's just like flashbacks and like maybe you don't see her face and maybe they're just using this actress as a stand-in.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
hopefully.
Oh. That's true. I didn't think of that.
It could be. We could see the actual flashback of the story between Helen
Caroline
and Candyman.
Sullivan, like her
Yeah.
original character.
We could see that, because we only ever saw it through images and paintings in the
That's
first
true.
film about how she existed back then, and she was the woman who he was in love with. That we could see that. That would be cool. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, maybe that's what they'll do then, because it just says Cassie Kramer's Helen Lyle / Caroline Sullivan. So maybe we'll see, like the original story.
Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us too. You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe they will. I don't know. But yeah, I'm also really excited. Yeah, as I say about Vanessa Williams being back. I loved her in the trailer. She was even in just the one line, she was just I was like, yes, I'm so glad she's back. And Tony Paris, it's a really great cast. So I'm looking forward to all of them. And it's only 91 minutes, which means they might be able to, a lot of horror films these days, as I said before, are really trying to drag out things. And a lot of the Conjuring films are quite long. And some of them don't need to be that long. It's fine. I love
The Nun.
Well, the Nun doesn't even need to be alive. It's a horrendous, disgusting.
He's right. That's an
I can't
awful
believe
film.
they even allowed that film
It's
to be
the
created.
one in the franchise that I genuinely think is a bad movie, and I think the rest are either passable to great.
And it's the one in the franchise that everyone was most excited to see when it was announced because of the whole.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god.
Highest grossing.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
And it's.
but yeah, I'm really
so bad.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the music's like. What type of the soundtrack is, because obviously, the score is phenomenal in the original. Helen's theme is amazing. They use it in a lot of other films. They used it in American Horror Story Asylum, which is an amazing.
I heard it in something recently as well. I don't remember. It
It's
was in
so
Hell
good.
House. It was in Hell House. Some of the music from Candyman was in Hell House. I think it was Hell House, or maybe it was something else.
No, it wasn't Hell. There's no music in Hell
I
House.
thought it was
It's found
maybe
footage.
someone else was playing on the piano and something different. I thought it was the guy playing on the piano in Hell House. It must have been something different that I watched.
I honestly thought they were doing the Moonlight Sonata, which you hear in a lot of horror films or horror video games. I could be wrong.
On the piano, he was doing dun 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 dun, which again, watch the sequels and you'll find out what that song is. But it's not Candyman. But yes, I'm looking forward to seeing how they further the story. I'm assuming that maybe this is going to be a case of every horror film is doing now, because Halloween 2018 was such a success, where they're ignore any sequel that came. This is a direct sequel to the original, which is fine.
But that's a great trend, because so many original horror films were ruined by their sequels. I know Wes Craven kind of did this with New Nightmare, but with Heather Langenkamp. But I would love to see. I don't know how you do it with Friday the 13th, because that franchise has had so many stops and starts, and people kind of prefer like 6 and 4. It would be hard to do a direct sequel to Friday the 13th Part 6. To pitch that to mainstream audiences could be a bit much. But if you did a direct sequel to the original Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's a decrepit old Freddy Krueger versus an older Nancy, like Terminator Dark Fate or Halloween, I think Heather Langenkamp could totally pull that off. in my opinion.
I
think
mean, I'm not gonna lie, that would be fun to see, but I think, I don't know what they're gonna do with that series if they do anything. So, but I
think-
agree. I think George, you're correct because of the hit which again, Halloween 2018 was phenomenal in my opinion.
Yeah.
And bravo to Jamie Lee Curtis in that. I mean, my God. So I'm all for seeing that trend, and I think that's great. And I mean, this cast, I just think the cast and crew on this just seem like all around it's stacked. I hope it's good. To me, it's being set up to be really good, but we won't know until we see it, which will be really upsetting if it's not. But I'm really excited to see it, and I think I really feel like maybe this could be a possible, I don't know, Oscar contender, but like you said, I certainly who knows, maybe SAG. I would hope to see something. I wish, as we had talked in our interview yesterday, we see so many like stunts go under rewarded. I feel like we see that with a lot of
well, it's such a
films.
shame. Like, we want Hollywood to recognize stunts, and then they finally recognize stunts, and they recognize like Wonder Woman in 1984 for stunts. Like, what the fuck? And they didn't even nominate.
You know what? Hold on. It could have been worse. It could have been Mulan that one.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a tangent there, but yeah, Candyman. I think we're all looking forward to it. I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be the first big horror film that's come out in a while. Well, I mean, obviously, I know Thingo came out recently, but that wasn't really a horror film, to be honest. Conjuring 3, that was more a police investigation movie. It was good.
I liked that movie.
Yeah,
it was Law and Order meets Satan,
but it just lost its way for me, I think. I mean, Vera Farmiga and Patrick wasn't. I would stay and watch any film for those two, so it's fine. But
I agree with that,
I love
George.
films set in New England. Like, I just love that sort of setting. It's my ideal sort of. It's like visual. Like, my eyes just love that type of Maine setting, which is why, even though a lot of Stephen King movies are horrible, I still enjoy them because like Maine is just that beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with George though. The chemistry those two have. If they kept making Conjuring films, I would probably keep watching just because they're in it.
Yeah,
they're one of the best couples ever.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead then and wrap that up. That's all for today's episode of the Horror Hour, because as you can see, some folks are getting tired. And so thank you all for listening. Join us again next week when we will review Nia DaCosta's Candyman. I'm really excited. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can never miss an episode. Plus, if you haven't already, go follow us on social media. We are at the Horror Hour TV, so you can keep up with the latest news. And if you have a question or want to give thoughts on a next week's topic, you can tweet us using the hashtag The Horror Hour. And if you do end up watching us on YouTube, please click that like and subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it.
And the notification bell.
Right. Yes. And the notification bell. All right. See you all later. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the